He asked me to attend his wedding. I declined and scheduled mine on the same day. For 3 years, I dedicated myself to caring for Harvey Lewis after he lost his sight. So when he regained his vision, I was ecstatic. The first thing he did was propose to his ex-fiancée, Diana Chase, the same woman who had once humiliated him. I thought it was a mistake until I overheard him talking to a friend at a party. "Harvey," his friend began, "did you know it was your maid who'd been taking care of you all these years?" "I know," Harvey replied casually, almost indifferently. His friend looked confused. "Then why?" "Have you ever heard the saying, the first thing a blind man does when he regains his sight is throw away his cane?" Harvey explained. "She saw me at my worst, witnessed all my failures. That's why she can only ever be the cane I throw away." I stood frozen, just outside the doorway. I didn't step inside. Instead, I turned around, handed in my resignation, and boarded a southbound train, leaving with nothing but my savings and 3 lost years. "Are you sure you want to resign, Mrs. Lewis?" Harvey's mother asked, her eyes on the letter. Her expression was thoughtful. She clearly hadn't expected the woman who had loved her son so deeply to leave in less than a month. But to me, it made perfect sense. When love is gone, clinging to it is pointless. I wasn't going to lose myself over a man who no longer cared. "I'm not getting any younger," I said, a lie I hoped she'd believe. "My parents want me to come home and settle down." My parents had passed away 3 years ago, and my home was a crumbling, abandoned cabin. Mrs. Lewis studied my faded clothes and worn-out appearance. A flicker of guilt crossed her face before she sighed and pulled a check from a drawer. "Here's $200,000, she said. "A token of my appreciation for taking care of my son." I knew I couldn't refuse. She called it a gesture of gratitude, but we both understood the truth. This money was meant to sever the last tie between Harvey and me. The moment I accepted it, there would be nothing left to connect us. I was born in a forgotten little town in the American South, a place so small it didn't even make it onto most maps. We were surrounded by dense pine forests, and the only way in or out was a dusty gravel road. There was no school. To get an education, you had to take a rickety bus 15 miles away. My family was poor. There were 3 of us kids, but only enough money to send one to school. I was the middle child, not the eldest, so I didn't carry the weight of my family's hopes, not the youngest, so I wasn't spoiled. I was the one most easily overlooked. In 8th grade, our class participated in a pen pal program with a big city up north. The letter I wrote felt like a tiny window to a different world. I filled 2 whole pages, overflowing with questions about cars and city life. I never expected a response. But a month later, a crisp, clean envelope arrived. The handwriting was neat, and every one of my questions had been answered in patient detail. At the bottom was a simple signature, Harvey. I whispered his name over and over, etching it into my heart. We kept writing, sharing glimpses of our lives. He told me he was 2 years older, loved basketball and dogs, and hated practicing his penmanship, which I found funny because his writing was always flawless. By the time I finished middle school, things at home had gotten worse. To be fair, my parents decided to draw lots to see which of us 3 kids would go to high school. But as the middle child, I wasn't even given a chance to draw. I didn't protest. I just buried my face in a thin pillow and cried quietly. With no one else to turn to, I poured my heartbreak into a letter to Harvey. I had resigned myself to becoming a housemaid, another dream buried by reality. But then, a miracle happened. My teacher told me someone had offered to sponsor my high school education. Years later, while in college, I finally gathered the courage to ask my teacher who that generous person was. She smiled softly. It was Harvey. I froze. My heart pounded. Harvey, the boy who talked to me about basketball and dogs, who had quietly changed the course of my life, was more than just a pen pal. When it was time to choose a university, I didn't hesitate. I applied to the one closest to his hometown. I told myself it was for better opportunities, but deep down, I just wanted to find him and say thank you. Young hearts I easily stayed. As we exchanged letters, my feelings for him grew alongside my overwhelming curiosity. I imagined his face countless times. When I finally followed the address on one of his letters, nothing was as I had imagined. His family was far wealthier than I could have ever pictured. And Harvey himself had lost his sight in an accident during my senior year of high school, right around the time his letters had suddenly stopped. After the accident, Harvey spiraled into a deep depression, locking himself in his room and smashing things whenever his temper flared. His parents, worn thin by his despair, began to abandon him. The household staff, tired of his unpredictable behavior, avoided him. He was a discarded pawn. When I found out, I was furious. Seeing him so broken and abandoned filled me with both sadness and rage. I started going to his house every day. I cleaned, cooked, and tended to his needs with gentle patience, coaxing him out of his darkness, little by little. His mother, seeing my genuine care, hired me as his personal maid. At first, he tried to scare me off with cruel tricks, but I didn't leave. Then came that stormy day. I was late, and he was alone in the dark. The thunder dragged him back to the memory of the accident, and I found him curled in a corner, trembling. I wrapped my arms around him and hummed a lullaby. After that day, he never pushed me away again, and so I stayed. For 3 years, I poured my heart into caring for him. He slowly regained his confidence, and his vision began to improve. 3 years of shared days, quiet companionship, and an unspoken understanding. My feelings for him blossomed. I even started to imagine a future with him. One evening, just before his vision returned, he stared in my direction, his cloudy eyes filled with fragile hope. "When my eyes heal, will you marry me?" he asked softly. I nodded, without even thinking. He laughed, sweeping me into his arms, his joy infectious. Later, he did propose, but not to me. The day Harvey had his bandages removed after surgery, I rushed to the hospital, my heart pounding. I was anticipating seeing him. Instead, I found him beaming as he embraced Diana, his ex-fiancée. He pulled out the diamond ring and proposed. "Thank you for taking care of me so selflessly these past 3 years, Diana," he said. Diana's face flashed with a momentary shock before she covered it with her hands, a mask of bashful joy. I knew he'd mistaken her for me. As I was about to step forward, Mrs. Lewis stopped me, motioning for me to follow her into the hallway. "Sherry," she said, her tone calm but cutting, "you must realize you and Harvey come from completely different worlds. If it hadn't been for his accident, you two never would have crossed paths." I couldn't argue because she was right. "I won't stand in the way if Harvey realizes that you're the woman he truly loves before the wedding," she continued. "But if he doesn't, then perhaps it's just not meant to be. He needs someone who matches his social standing." I glanced back at the room. Harvey and Diana looked every bit the perfect match. My chest ached. Why her, Harvey? I thought, "You've forgotten so much, but how could you forget me? I'm Sherry K. Smith. I stood up for you when Diana crushed your sunglasses under her heel and called you a blind dog. I was the one who picked up the pieces." When we returned, Diana had already accepted his proposal. She looked at me with smug satisfaction. "Go peel me an apple," she commanded, her voice dripping with arrogance. "And who's this?" Harvey asked, glancing in my direction. "She's the personal maid I hired for you," Mrs. Lewis said quickly. "Very diligent and responsible." Harvey nodded slightly, no suspicion in his eyes. "Since you're the maid and Diana wants an apple, go peel one for her." Just like that, as if I were nothing more than a stranger. I stood there for a moment, then slowly picked up an apple and a knife. My fingers trembled as I began to peel. Diana watched with a smug delight, her voice sweet as she leaned toward Harvey. "Have her put on gloves and peel another one," she whined. "I don't want to eat something her dirty hands have touched." Harvey, eager to please, turned to me. Can't you handle something as simple as peeling an apple properly? He said, his face darkening slightly. I bit the inside of my cheek, fighting back tears. I'm sorry, Miss Chase, I said, my voice catching. I'll redo it. I put on gloves and peeled another apple, but Diana found another reason to reject it. Too thick, too thin, not shiny enough. By the time I'd gone through every apple in the room, my hands were numb. My heart, even more so. I knew exactly what she was doing. I was an obstacle, and she wanted to humiliate me. After Harvey was discharged, the Chase family wasted no time finalizing the wedding arrangements. The date was set for 2 weeks away. 2 weeks. The truth was, I didn't want to give up on him. But what I didn't realize was that Harvey had already given up on me. At his engagement party, a friend cornered him, clearly wrestling with guilt. Harvey, he said, you do know it was your personal maid, Sherry, who's been taking care of you all these years, right? Harvey swelled the wine in his glass, unbothered. I know. His friend looked puzzled. Then why? Have you ever heard the saying? Harvey began, and the words that followed were the same ones I'd heard just outside the door. The first thing a blind man does when he regains his sight is throw away his cane. She saw me at my lowest. She'll always be just a cane I no longer need. Sadness surged through me, sharp and suffocating. The man I adored had become the very knife-carving wounds into my heart. I didn't stay for the party. I turned, walked away, and handed Mrs. Lewis my resignation. I didn't have much to pack, just a single suitcase. I lied to Mrs. Lewis about going back home because there was nothing to return to. I opened my phone, picked a random train heading south, and bought a ticket. My first stop was Ruston. The sky was unbelievably blue, the flowers vibrant. I tried to heal, piece by piece, but the harder you try to forget something, the more it clings to you. One day, I received a video from an unfamiliar number. It was Harvey. He looked disheveled and exhausted. In the video, a friend was half joking, "Your maid's gone. Why don't you go apologize?" Harvey smirked. I wasn't joking. What's there to explain? Besides, why should I apologize? She's the one who left without a word. Who knows? Maybe she's just playing hard to get. His friend laughed in agreement. She liked you so much, I bet she'll come crawling back in a few days. Harvey chuckled. Then with a careless shrug, he added, even if she's dead, I wouldn't go looking for her. The video ended with Diana running into his arms, her laughter ringing in the background. I stayed at my screen, frozen. The coldest part wasn't my skin, it was my heart. I had never truly known him. Maybe I was just a fool, a clown in a show I didn't even realize I was a part of. I deleted the video without a word and went for a walk. Suddenly, someone yanked me back with such force that I stumbled and fell. Don't do it, a voice shouted. I looked up into the face of a young man with messy black hair and vivid emerald green eyes. Are you okay? He asked, filled with genuine concern. I'm fine, I said, brushing the dirt off my clothes. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you can talk to me, he said. Don't do anything drastic, okay? It took me a second to realize what he meant. Wait, no, I said. I wasn't trying to jump into the river. His face flushed bright red. Oh, I'm sorry. I saw you standing there alone. It's okay, I said with a small smile. He hesitated, then awkwardly pulled out his phone. Can I have your number? I'm worried. I told you I wasn't trying to kill myself, I said, trying not to laugh. Right, sorry, I didn't mean that. He stammered, his cheeks a brilliant crimson. There was something endearing about his flustered apology. Oh, I get it, I teased. You like me, don't you? No, I mean, not like that, he insisted, his eyes wide in horror. We exchanged numbers and names. His name was Jacob, a college student who lived nearby. He liked to go for night runs, and on this particular run, He'd seen me standing alone by the water and thought he was saving me from myself. After spending some time in Ruston, Jacob and I grew closer. What started as light teasing and jokes slowly revealed something deeper. I realized he genuinely liked me, but we never acknowledged it. Friends often say the best way to forget an old love is to start a new one, but it's not that simple. 3 years with Harvey wasn't a fleeting affair. It was years of my life. I started to distance myself from Jacob, hoping he'd get the hint, but he didn't. After a while, I realized Ruston suited me. I rented a small shop and opened a flower store, Blissful Blooms. Jacob, now in his senior year of college, insisted on helping out, claiming it was for work-study. Days passed quietly, peaceful, until the phone rang one afternoon. "Hello, this is Blissful Blooms," I said, cradling the phone between my shoulder and ear. The line was silent, but I could hear faint breathing. "Hello, are you looking to place an order?" Just as I was about to hang up, a familiar voice said, "Sherry." It hit me like a punch to the chest. Harvey. It had been nearly 3 months since I'd left. My pen froze mid-scribble. "Is this Mr. Lewis?" I asked, my voice steady, the sharp edges hidden beneath polite indifference. What brings someone so important to call someone as insignificant as a maid? His breath hitched. "Did you really quit?" he asked. "I heard from my mother you went back home to get married soon." "That's right," I said, keeping my tone light. "I went to your hometown." "You weren't there," he confessed, his voice sounding small and fragile. "Back then." He was arrogant, certain I'd come crawling back. But 3 months had passed, and now he was unraveling. "If you don't have any real reason for calling, Mr. Lewis, I'll hang up now," I said. His composure cracked. "I'm getting married next week. You'll come to the wedding, won't you?" A sharp sting in my chest. Was this an invitation or an insult? For a fleeting second, I felt the old ache, but then, nothing, just emptiness. "Sorry, I can't make it," I said. "Why not?" he asked, a trace of panic in his voice. I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. "Because I'm getting married too." Then I hung up. A deep breath followed, and the heaviness I'd carried for so long was gone. That's when the shop bell chimed. Jacob was standing in the doorway, sunlight framing him. He held a bouquet of roses. My heart skipped. I thought I'd never feel this again. Jacob, oblivious to the storm inside me, placed the flowers neatly in a vase. But this time, I stepped forward, plucked a single rose from the bouquet, and looked up at him. "Jacob," I said, my heart lighter than it had been in years, "let's give this a try." The next day, we had our first official date. Jacob practically dragged me out of bed and insisted on taking it seriously. We went to an amusement park. After a few rides, he insisted I sit and rest while he went to buy ice cream. I was lazily flipping through the park map when a shadow fell over me. I looked up, expecting to see Jacob, but it was Harvey. He was unshaven, a far cry from the polished man I once knew. He stepped forward as if to hug me, but I sidestepped, putting space between us. The surprise in his eyes was palpable. He had never expected me to reject him. I glanced toward Jacob in the distance, who was juggling drinks and balloons. I instinctively started to walk toward him, but Harvey grabbed my arm. "Please don't go," he whispered, desperation in his voice. "Harvey," I said, my voice calm and steady. "You were right all along. We were never the same. I was foolish to think we had a future, but I've woken up from that dream." His face crumpled. No, Sherry, that's not true." He reached for me again, but Jacob arrived just then, stepping beside me and gently taking my hand. He didn't say a word, didn't interfere, but his fingers intertwined with mine, grounding me. I squeezed his hand softly, then turned back to Harvey. "Harvey, stop holding on to the past," I said, my smile filled with genuine warmth. "We both deserve to move on." I reached into my bag and pulled out the check Mrs. Lewis had given me. I forced it into his hand, refusing to let him reject it. Thank you for being a part of my life, I said. You changed it in ways both good and bad, but I'm done now. I turned to Jacob, my heart steady and sure. Let's go, sweetheart. Calling him that felt natural, easy. Behind me, I could feel Harvey deflate, but I didn't look back. When we got home, I told Jacob everything. I thought he'd be upset, maybe even angry. But he wasn't. Instead, he pulled me into a tight hug, his voice thick with emotion. I'm just heartbroken for you, he said. You had to go through all that with that jerk. His words hit me harder than I expected. Heartbroken for me. No one had ever said that to me before. My chest tightened, and my eyes filled with tears. Jacob panicked immediately, fumbling for tissues and dabbing at my face. Oh no, don't cry. Did I say something wrong? His frantic, clumsy attempts to comfort me were so ridiculous that I burst out laughing through my tears. Seeing me laugh, Jacob relaxed and chuckled, too. Later, we lay in bed, his arms wrapped around me. Jacob, I said, resting my head on his chest. I'm so lucky I met you. Me too, he whispered, kissing my hair. Me too.